to get to one another and connect. So feel free to stick around then if you do stop by next week. Now, with that, with those announcements out of the way, I'd like to introduce today's speaker, Amelia.
Thank you, Nara. Good morning. My name is Amelia, and I'm the Children's Program Director here at the River. Welcome. I'm so glad to be here with you all today. So, what do you see in this picture? Is it just flowers or tulips? Anyone see chairs? Well, Eero Saarinen did and designed a whole line of furniture called the tulip table and chair. The white dining table, actually, that we have in the lounge room is one of them. What about this picture? This origami pattern inspired Issey Miyake to design his Pleats Please collection, transforming a flat material into dynamic sculptural forms. And what about this one? So if anyone can transform fish into a museum, it would be Frank Gehry. Gehry was influenced by the concept of movement and the reflective surfaces of fish scales. Architects and designers often look at something completely different from what they intend to create to activate their imagination. For example, to get themselves unstuck and innovate, they will often go into the nature and look for inspiration. Their brains will go through a creative process, gathering sensory information, drawing on memories, and weaving emotions together to form new mental pictures. Unpredictable patterns, new forms, and new ways of doing things. Imagination is the start of invention. And when we combine our imagination and logic, we can create products, we can construct buildings, we can create systems to better our lives. Until one day, these inventions no longer serve us, and we have to reimagine again. What about life? What can we do if we feel stuck in life, repeating the same cycles of worries and anxiety? How can we renew our mindset and unhelpful beliefs? Well, we are all authors of our lives. Our lives are shaped by how we perceive, interpret, and narrate our experiences. So, in some ways, we do undergo creative process, just like the architects and designers earlier. And this process happens constantly throughout our lives, unconsciously and consciously. Now, we would like to believe that we know ourselves very well. We would like to believe that the names we call ourselves, the words and language that we use to narrate our stories represent our reality. However, I wonder if we are reliable narrators of our lives. Do we actually have a good grasp on what is going on in our lives and in the world around us? Are we aware that how our stories can shape our experiences? So I want us to read an example of a letter someone wrote to an online therapist. The subject title here, I'm completely broken. Dear therapist, I don't know why I'm writing this because I don't think anything can help. My boyfriend broke up with me, and I can't blame him. I wasn't enough, smart enough, pretty enough, or worth staying with. College has been a disaster. I'm far from home, completely alone, and my roommates clearly don't like me. They're always partying, and I feel like the boring, pathetic outsider. I don't belong anywhere. I have no motivation to do anything. I barely eat, and I don't want to go out or see anyone. My final project is due soon, but I can't even bring myself to start. I'm stuck, and I don't know how to get out of this. I hate myself for being so weak and useless. I'm a failure who can't figure out her life, and I don't see the point in trying anymore. This is a letter I imagine writing as a 19-year-old me who had just broken up with my first boyfriend. Many of you probably can relate to this, that breaking up with a first love can often be uniquely painful and transformative. Because for many, this could be their first significant emotional loss. It was a pivotal moment of growth for me, one that led to deep introspections and profound questionings about life, identity, and meaning. Names, words, and language are like things. They're like building blocks of our stories. And when we string words together, and we share them with friends, and we hear them back to ourselves, this unconsciously create an experience. And eventually, we will create a whole reality around it too. So negative names and labelings such as weak, broken, pathetic, useless, and so forth, these can become the framework through which we see ourselves. And they can become internalized and shape our behaviors and beliefs. So, while words do not always represent reality, words can also make things what they are. Stories are also how we interpret our roles in relationships and make sense of life and the world around us. So when we present ourselves as someone who is not enough, who does not belong, who's always ruining things and could not get themselves back up, we may unconsciously confine ourselves and limit ourselves to what is possible and not possible. Stories we tell about ourselves can either empower us or hold us back. And this is why having a good story, one that is created more consciously, can be life-changing. Many of you know that Bible stories are at the core of the River Kids curriculum. And I have developed a strong fascination with these stories. In fact, I've come to believe that stories are one of God's most important gifts to us. There's one particular story that I would like to share with you today, and that is the story of Jesus' baptism. At that time, Jesus came from Nazareth in Galilee and was baptized by John in the Jordan. Just as Jesus was coming up out of the water, he saw heaven being torn open and the Spirit descending on him like a dove. and a voice came from heaven. You are my Son, whom I love. With you I am well pleased. There are many reasons why this story is significant. For example, this story affirms Jesus' identity. God declares Jesus as God's beloved Son and confirming his divine nature. This story also marks the start of Jesus' public ministry and provides a model for us, a symbolic act of faith and initiation. However, the reason why I particularly like to tell this story for the kids is because I get to use it to lead the kids into imaginative prayer. A prayer where we close our eyes together, take a couple of deep breaths, and imagine ourselves in the story. So, as the kids imagine, I get to tell them, James, you are loved. Vera, Jude, Mason, Sophie, Sharon, every one of you is beloved too. And God is pleased with you. Now, it's possible, maybe even likely, that one day these children will forget all the details of the story. However, it is my hope that they will remember the practice of putting themselves in the story. A story that tells them who they are, that they are beloved, that they have a meaningful place in this expansive universe. I also hope that they remember that connecting with God is as easy as closing their eyes. That imagination is a tool to help us feel connected to the invisible and intangible parts of ourselves and of our universe. If you have been coming to the church for some time, you may be aware that the Bible is full of stories. Stories about human beings trying to make sense of life, of God, and the world around them. And although some of these stories may be challenging to interpret or understand, they address our deep longing for connection and belonging. Carl Jung said, "The world needs a myth in order to make sense of the world and of itself. Without myth, modern society can struggle with disorientation and meaninglessness, as it lacks the foundational stories that have traditionally helped individuals navigate their personal and collective journeys." This is why I think the Bible is a gift to humanity. The Bible is filled with stories that collectively tell us about a God who is constantly communicating and interacting, affirming our worth, and guiding us in our quest. Now, there are many things in life that we cannot control. We can't choose the family or environment that we're born into. We can't control natural disasters or economy or global events. We cannot choose our genetic predisposition to certain illnesses and conditions. Accidents happen. Deaths happen. Opinions, judgment, or actions of others, these two we cannot control. However, when it comes to our story, we are not passive participants. While we cannot control everything that happens to us, we can choose how to interpret these events and what meaning we assign them. we can use a little bit of imagination and let ourselves be inspired by the name that God has for us. Beloved. We can reframe our experience in new ways, and the story we tell will shape how we move forward. In psychotherapy, there is a counseling approach called narrative therapy developed by David Epson and Michael White that views people as separate from their problems and encourages them to see themselves as storytellers. So writing letters is one technique to help individuals construct more useful narratives about themselves and their experiences. So, let's revisit the letter I wrote earlier and read one potential version for how the narrative could be rewritten. Subject title, Seeking Guidance and Support. Dear therapist, I'm reaching out because I've been feeling a bit overwhelmed and could use some support. My boyfriend and I recently broke up, and while it's tough, I'm reminding myself that healing takes time. I'm not defined by this experience. College has been challenging. I'm far from home. And although I feel disconnected at times, I'm doing my best to adjust. I know it's okay to have moments of struggle. Lately, I've been feeling less motivated and not taking care of myself as I should. I'm finding it hard to start my final project, but I believe I can find the energy to push through. I'm reaching out because I want to take positive steps forward, and I believe with guidance I can grow stronger from this experience. Thank you for listening. Does this story sound better? Notice the words used in this letter. Support, healing, doing my best, it's okay, I believe I can. This letter is not only kinder, it makes room for wonder, for grace, for unpredictable things to happen. There's less judgment and less self-defeating language. The events, the content of the story are still practically the same, but the tone is a lot more hopeful. Difficult feelings are still acknowledged. They're not bypassed, but they are not viewed as permanent or the end of the story. Can you imagine the kind of experiences, attitudes, and behavior that may come from such a different narrative? We see the world according to our tools. When we have a good narrative or myths to inspire us, when we are aware how powerful our minds and imagination can be, we can rewrite our stories. Stories that are kind and helpful about ourselves, about others, and the world. There are many aspects of us. There are many areas in our lives and the world that are hidden to us in plain sight. When we are stressed, our minds become trapped in repetitive thoughts pattern, worries, fears, or self-criticisms. Imagination is one way to break from this cycle and access the deeper parts of us. so that we can feel more connected, even guided in this big world that we're all in. Last Sunday, we did an imaginative prayer exercise with the children. We asked the children to imagine themselves in their favorite place, the place where they feel most content and happy. And here are some of the things that they shared. One child saw herself walking in a field of flowers with her family following right behind her. Our volunteer found herself at her grandmother's dining table, eating and listening to all the adults sharing stories. One child said he was in his sister's bedroom. That was his favorite place, sharing a bowl of ramen together. Now, I know these are imaginings. I'm aware of that. We all know this. At the same time, I sense something deep and significant about each of these stories. Maybe it was about the appreciation of being in nature, feeling connected with the world around them. Maybe it was related to a core memory, a meaningful childhood experience. Or it was the strong bond shared between two siblings. The images could be explained as a collage of memories and neural connections. But the feelings are real, and the underlying meanings may feel true to those who experience them. All of us have stories about ourselves and about other people. Some are good and kind, some are not so much. So I would like to close our sermon today with a short imaginative exercise and see if we can stimulate a shift in the stories that we have. So, can we close our eyes together and take a couple of deep breaths? Breathe in, breathe out. One more time, breathe in and breathe out. I want you to imagine yourself in your favorite place, a place where you feel most content and happy. What does this place look like? What do you see around you? Who do you see? What is everyone doing? How is everyone relating to one another? Do you see God anywhere? How does God look at you? Does God have anything to say to you? Okay. When you are ready, you can take another deep breath and open your eyes. Thank you all for participating. If it feels meaningful to you, feel free to share your experiences of that exercise with each other after the service. I know I'd love to hear about how God was speaking to you through your imaginations. At this point, I'd like to invite the worship team back up to the stage, and I will close us in prayer. God, thank you for the gift of imagination. Teach us to recognize your voice and let us trust in your presence. Help us rewrite the story we tell ourselves with truth and hope. May we claim ourselves as beloved and see others as beloved too. Amen.